Lately, it feels like everything is a subscription, and subscription fatigue is very real. Well, today, the subscriptions have come for your newborn baby. That's right, you heard that correctly. The latest source of outrage, the Snoo Smart Bassinet, a $1,700 miracle bassinet that promises to give exhausted parents a few extra hours of much needed sleep during those early first months of an infant's life. However, after parents shelled out more than $1,700 for this miracle cure for their child's sleep needs, the company announced today that instead of allowing you to actually access the functions of the bassinet that you paid almost $2,000 for, you'll now only be able to access those functions that keep it smart if you start paying a subscription fee. Now, none of these subscription fees were disclosed before you bought the bassinet, and now parents are left wondering what they actually bought for $1,700. Now, Snoo is hardly a one-off issue. People have been outraged about increasing subscriptions at all types of products like Adobe, which recently said they were going to sue people that used the software they bought if they didn't stop using the software they had paid for prior and start paying a subscription fee for new software, despite the fact that these people had purchased that software outright. We've also seen a huge increase in subscriptions across a litany of other products that previously were not subscription based, and it's become big business, especially in the private equity space. We're going to talk about what the FTC is currently doing, who they're suing, and what you can do at a local level to rein in these out of control subscriptions, because we know they want us to own nothing and be happy, but we can still fight back. Let's get into it. For hundreds of thousands of parents that valued the possibility of having sleep after their little one entered the world, the Snoo Smart Bassinet promised that that was the best chance they had at getting a child to sleep through the night. The New York Times authors that reviewed this bassinet were skeptical at first, but found that it actually did the job better than any other bassinet they tried with their newborns. They gave the following. They said it had a famous founder that was a medical doctor that knew what he was doing, and that the smart bassinets that were out there failed to compete because this one had the most smart functionality that was actually performing as promised. The problem is that for a sky-high price of $1,700, it had a very limited lifespan because a baby could only be in this bassinet until they were 25 pounds. That means that you were shelling out $1,700 for something you could only use for a couple of months in some cases. That price tag made sure that most people in the parent communities couldn't afford a $1,700 bassinet, but it led to a robust secondhand market. And suddenly sales started to drop because there weren't as many people buying new Snoos. Instead, they were being circulated all over Facebook Marketplace and in other secondhand apps, where families that couldn't afford a brand new bassinet could maybe pay $600 to get that sleep back at an early age, and that felt more palatable to them. The problem was that the people at the Happiest Baby, the company that owned and created this Snoo, were not happy with this change in the marketplace. So they came up with an alternative and shocked everyone when they announced that now the smart bassinet that promised limitless amazing functionality suddenly gave no access to the functionality you had actually paid for unless you started paying for a costly monthly subscription. Now, Happiest Baby is hardly a one-off or an outlier in the consumer space. When you look at the fact that Harvard Business Review recently released a podcast that said every business can be a subscription business, telling tomorrow's future leaders of today how they can find a way to make sure that their company squeezes every penny possible out of their future consumers. Don't you remember when you used to own your software? Or maybe when you owned your exercise bike? How about when you owned your printer? Perhaps one of the most explosive and generally dirty revelations in the subscription space was that HP had started disabling printer cartridges over the Wi-Fi in your house if you canceled your ink subscription, even if the machine was still filled with the ink you had already paid for, all the way to the top. If you canceled that subscription, they disabled your printer's ability to function against your wishes. Conspicuously, when you bought that printer and you read the box, nowhere did it say it would not function without a subscription service. But that is, in fact, what consumers found to be true. Another explosive and disgusting example was when BMW started announcing that if you wanted to access the functionality you had already purchased in your new vehicle, you were going to have to pay subscription fees for things that were built into the car as add-ons you had already paid for, like heated front seats at $18 a month and a heated steering wheel you had paid for that you were now also going to pay an additional $12 a month. This is just one example of a litany of examples that are taking place in the car space. Unfortunately, the reality is that a lot of people don't know what they're subscribed to. They forget about subscriptions that they've subscribed to in the past and don't realize that they've continued to pay for things until it's too late, long after they've stopped using them. And that's why a number of articles and journal studies have shown that companies reap the most profit from any given product or service when they engage in subscription price modeling. Which may be why snoo crib maker Happiest Baby has suddenly switched to a subscription model. Could it be that the resale market was impacting their growth and they're currently seeking a $1 billion sale, shopping their company to private equity firms all across America and in the UK? Unfortunately, studies show that subscription services yield the most profit for most companies, often because we are so exhausted and so overextended that we don't have the time, energy, or effort to go through the almost impossible processes they lay out before us when it's time to cancel. As a matter of fact, some companies have made it so hard to cancel that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, have actually sued them after it's been discovered that they've gone to extreme lengths to make it so that you can't cancel your subscriptions, or that it is so cumbersome or difficult to cancel your subscriptions that you give up and just keep paying for things. The best example of this might be the FTC's recent case against Amazon Prime, where they sued the company for adding people to Amazon Prime without their permission once they had their credit cards on file, and then making it almost impossible to cancel. As a matter of fact, Amazon Prime had created a hundreds of page long routine that customers would have to go through that they called the Iliad Flow. That's right, hundreds of pages you would have to go through on their website to make it so laborious and so difficult that it would become an epic journey if you ever wanted out of your Amazon Prime subscription. And that's why the FTC has sued them, saying that they made it impossible. But that's not where the FTC has stopped. Instead, Lina Khan, one of my favorite people in the government, has created and spearheaded the click to cancel rule, a rule that would penalize companies that make you cancel by phone or make it difficult or cumbersome to cancel a subscription. Instead, using plain language that say that to cancel a subscription has to be at least as easy as it was to subscribe, and that you may not make it any harder than the original subscription path to get out of that subscription. Also saying that you're not allowed to try and intervene in their cancellation by offering them big discounts or temporary lower prices. It's called the negative option rule, and it comes into play very soon, but not before first taking 60 days of comments from the general public and a whole lot of very angry lobbyists. During the 60-day request for information and comment period open to the general public, I searched through more than 1,500 comments and could not find a single everyday consumer that opposed the creation of this new rule. I actually thought this woman, Margaret, said it best. I think if I can sign up for a service online in seconds, I should not have to wait hours on the phone to cancel it. I support the FTC's proposal to the negative option rule, which would increase consumer protections and protect us from being swindled by companies who make it incredibly difficult to cancel memberships and subscriptions. Companies need to make it very clear what we are signing up for, and they need to make canceling fast and easy. But the lobbyist comments were a veritable who's who of every corporation that's ever tried to screw you in every monopoly industry in the United States, starting with the Chamber of Commerce, the Community and Communications Industry Direct Selling Association, the Technology Industry Council, the Marketplace Industry Association, the Entertainment Software Association, the Digital Media Association, the Motion Picture Association. Comments from the Florida Service Agreement Association, those are the home warranty people and car warranty people. U.S. Telecom, the Global Health and Fitness Association that handles all gym membership, the American Communications Association, the Consumer Technology Association, Privacy for Cars, they sell subscriptions for all kinds of technology for automobiles. The Electronic Security Association, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, the Association of National Advertisers, those are the magazines, the Florida Service Agreement Association, another home warranty group. And it wouldn't be screwing American small businesses and consumers unless the International Franchise Association were there. They're the same monsters that are at the helm of everything that happened in my arbitration case. This was one of my favorite ones where it was a huge law firm paid hundreds of thousands of dollars on behalf of certain long-standing direct marketing companies, but they didn't want to say who it was. The list goes on and on with hundreds of trade organizations backed by billionaires and huge private equity funds paying these lobby groups hundreds of thousands of dollars to craft arguments trying to convince the FTC not to make it easy for you to cancel a subscription, instead wanting to make sure they could keep their tactics in place that make it almost impossible for you to ever stop paying them without canceling a credit card. Often they featured heavily on the requirement for a simple mechanism for the consumer to cancel the negative option feature. They do not want a simple mechanism for cancellation, and they really don't want you to not be able to be sold more items, confusing the process on the way out the door. Suffice it to say, if all of those trade organizations are against something being done for the American consumer, we should probably back. So while we want to support the FTC's new click to cancel rule, it's not all we can do. In fact, we have the ability to do more, where a number of states are taking action mirroring the FTC's work to limit the ability of subscription services to screw over consumers. Right now, California has recently put into place the automatic renewal law that says people have to be explicit in choosing to renew, and a company can't just keep renewing you into perpetuity. While New York's legislative amendments enacted in 2023 ensure that companies notify consumers 15 to 45 days before any automatic renewal of a subscription, and that they provide a clear path to cancellation. We all see that nothing feels like it's real anymore. Everything feels just out of reach. Everything feels like we don't own anything. Like everything that we want to have that's ours, that we believe is supposed to be permanent, is becoming less and less permanent and more elusive. We don't have to stand by and wait. We don't have to take what we're given. We don't have to swallow this pill. Instead, there are 18 states in the United States where you can engage in a voter referendum to enact your own laws. You could get together with a group of citizens in your state and craft a law and submit it to the ballot without ever talking to a legislator. If your legislators are bought and paid for, in those states you can go around them. And studies show that once 8 to 10 different states enact a new consumer protection law, it starts to become widespread and the federal government is more likely to intervene and make it more permanent. In addition, you can talk to your legislators at the local and at the state level and demand that they also take action. Never forget that I always have the ability to contact all of your legislators at the link in my bio. And if you want to take action with the FTC right now, they're currently asking for your comments, just like we saw in this video, on whether or not we believe that they should be working with the DOJ to prosecute private equity firms that are screwing over small businesses and hurting consumers. And that kit is also free at the link in my bio. It'll help you craft a letter and send it in under 3 minutes. You do not have to sit idly by and just take what you're given. We do not have to own nothing and be happy. Instead, we can take action, we can rise up, we can fight back, and we can save this country from itself and from these corporations and monopolies that have taken over everything. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and we work together to fight private equity, to save small businesses in our community, and to say we've had enough.